Now that we've loosened ourselves up a little bit, I'm going to scramble your brains once more. It's our Keys of Enoch. And we're looking at the sixth key. And in the previous lesson, we talked about the idea of Pleiades and Orion being the receptive and active principles. How what we thought they were references to constellations may in fact be something a little different. And the idea that people who write this stuff, they write it in a language that they understand. That's why we find the Bible so conflicting, because we don't understand the language, the nuances that were there when it was being put together. And I'm not referring to the Nicene Council either and all of that. I'm talking about the individual books and such. And he continues, in these higher creative functions, there are myriad arrangements of patterns for astrochemical destiny in the heavens, whereby both Pleiades and Orion are cooperatively used in the programming of light synthesis from the pure light bodies of Orion into the transfigured corresponding physical forms of Pleiadic programs.
Holy crap.
Holy crap is right.
Jeez.
Where's Robin when you need him? Holy moly, Batman! There's a lot of stuff going on here. But, we just pick a little bit and we focus on it. That's the nice thing about science, because science doesn't look at the whole, because the whole is too much. So we look at it in slices. And that's what we do. We look at this in slices. So we're going to look at our universe was created out of the light synthesis of the next universe. The light synthesis. Now, I looked up some of this stuff. Synthesis, to create, to bring together, to blend. So we are light beings. We are oscillations. We are frequencies. Well, we use the term frequencies, but the technical term is oscillations. It's waves, You grab a hold of some wire, and that shock that you get, it's not a steady, it's a wave. It's like zap, 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 zap. So oscillations. Do you recall the earlier light beings that we talked about? They were called the Lords of Light. Do you recall that?
That book one.
And who were the Lords of Light?
They weren't angels, were they?
No, they weren't angels. Angels are messengers. They're always going to be messengers. I'll give you a hint. One of the letters begins with a B. One of the names. Dodo, yeah. Thank you. One of the names begins with a B. And the other one begins with a J. And it's not BJ.
It's what's on the tarot, the columns. One name begins with the B, and the other one begins with the J.
That's good. That's good. that's Bose and Joaquin. That's good.
The B and the J.
That's good. But it's Buddha and Jesus.
Oh,
But I like like that. That's really good. Yeah, because it's those columns there. Let me see if I can recall that. No, I don't remember. My mind's a blank. I'm not gonna focus on it because I want to talk about Buddha and Jesus because they are the Lords of Light. And what are the Lords of Light? And you've got two examples there. What were Jesus and Buddha? They were
Master teachers.
teachers, enlightened, Christed, spiritual leaders. That's my turn. Everybody else gets an A. Spiritual leaders. So if we are of the light synthesis of the next universe, and we'll get to the next universe in a moment, and we've got the Lords of Light, what does that make us?
Light too?
A light too. What kind of light?
Dim.
Isn't that a song? Traveling Wilburys?
Well
done. Dim lights. Okay, dim lights. Okay, I'll let you have that one. I'll let you have that one. A dim light. But we are light beings. We have that potential of being a Lord of Light. Because when he talked about the Lords of Light, he only gave us examples. So what does that mean? Lords.
Everybody.
Yes, everybody. I like that answer better than mine. We are all spiritual teachers, and that's the idea here. And we are potential lords because we come from the next universe. Do you remember about the next universe? We talked about that a little bit in our last lesson. Now, some physicists, not all of them, but some physicists, DeBasey, I believe is his name, proposing the idea that the universe is light. And because it is light, and what are holograms made of?
Distortions. Your word, not mine.
Interference patterns.
There you go.
Yes. The higher creative functions. The higher creative functions of light is that holographic idea. We are light beings walking in this plane in this particular interference pattern. And what is it about us that is always continuing?
Our mind.
Mind, our light bodies. There are a myriad of patterns of astrochemical destiny. Astro is always about the stars. Astrochemical is a reference that we are star beings. And this is something that Hertak likes to refer to. Star beings, star child. No, that's Kiss. But we are created through the Pleiades program. And the Pleiades is a representation of the implicate universe. And the implicate universe is nothing more than a potential reality. You're familiar with the term, everything begins in spirit. Everything begins in the implicate reality. It's just another word. Science is calling this realm the implicate universe. David Bohm came up with this idea. There's the implicate universe and the explicate universe. There's the inner universe and the outer universe. And the Buddhists teach that everything begins where? In the mind. The inner universe. The implicate universe. It's something we can't see. But everything begins there. Einstein called it the quantum field. And he tells us that everything comes from the quantum field. Different names for the same thing. So if you ever get the impression that you're going round and round in circles, that's why. We teach in a fashion that we understand, because we receive in a fashion that we understand. That's why he writes like this. So what are your thoughts about being created through spiritual programming? I remember the last time that word came up, programming. Reverend Thomas is just grinning over there because he's got something in mind.
Well, I always have to simplify things so that I have a grasp of it. And a couple of comments I might add is that when you're talking about the Lords of Light, to me it's an evolutionary process, and that we are all on that same path. And those of us that have that have developed on the path ahead of us, reach back to give us a hand and share things so that we might see the light and progress. But you're absolutely right. That is our potential. That is our intention to do that. The other thoughts that were coming strong as you began this was that when you're talking about the Pleiades and Orion, these ideas, and a theme that seems to dominate man's understanding of things is where we have to credit something way bigger and beyond us for a process that's going on within us. And in the conventional churches, it's all about, this is the word of God, and you can't argue with that, and so here, thus and so, and okay, so we do that. In the Muslim world, one of the big confusions is the idea of jihad being this physical war in the name of God against infidels and all of that, where the enlightened Muslims see it as the inner war between good and evil within each of us. And that's what I hear you trying to describe. And I appreciate the difficulty of trying to put all these pieces together, because science does have other language for it, and spiritual teachings have another language for it. But in the end, it's taking these ideas, and you can worship the Pleiades and Orion, or you can take the concept and internalize it and make it yours, and because all the work has to happen in here. And you keep bringing us back to that point that it all begins in here, and they've told us that over here and here and here, whether it's the quantum field or whether it's Buddhist teachings. We've got to bring these ideas inside, because this is where the power is. The power being ability to actually make a change or create things, not to dominate in any way.
Exactly, not to dominate. And I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but the idea of those ahead reaching behind to help us, move us, bring us forward, Rudolf Steiner writes about that in his outline of occult science. We're not going to go into that because that's very deep stuff too. That's very deep stuff too. So, Sandy, do you have any thoughts about being created through programming?
Well, I will frankly admit that some of the concept is it's just really hard for me to get a grasp of. But so I really appreciated Reverend Thomas kind of putting it in a little different language that I could relate to. So I thank you very much for that, because I know you're saying the same thing, but sometimes if it's too scientific, I just have a hard time understanding some of it. But having said that, I liked I always write things down, but I liked Reverend Thomas equating that to our potential, the Lords of Light and Buddha and Jesus, about that potential that we all have, and that when you reach back and help another forward, it's great. I guess I really never thought about that, so that was really nice to hear. So I guess other than that, at this point, that's about all I can relate at this point, but I'm interested in hearing more.
Well, first time I read through this book, and this is my second time going through it, I didn't get this concept. Did you? Woo! Right over my head. I had no clue. In fact, I think I may have skipped this part. But it was only when I began asking questions, because Pleiades and Orion, they're paired up, and they kept coming up like that in the earlier chapters that we read. And I said, there's got to be more to this. So when I investigated, I discovered that there was more. Pleiades was about sisters being pursued by Orion. Something, wow, okay, so this comes back to the two basic principles of nature: receptive and active, potential and dynamic. So we are created from pure light. Does light have substance?
Well, it's energy.
Yeah, it's energy. But does it have substance?
What do you mean by substance? I mean, does it weigh something?
Well,
Does
the
that have
air,
physical form?
we have the air. We don't see the air. Can anybody see the air?
No.
Can anybody touch the air?
No.
Therefore, it has no substance. Light, on the other hand, you can see light. You may not be able to see the light, but you see the influence of light. Ooh, look at this. You see the influence of light. It's like, well, science calls it dark energy and dark matter. You can't see it, but by its gravity wells, you know where it's at. There's substance there. So light has substance. So we have substance. And I'm not talking about this body. I'm talking about those souls that we reach out to. If we can feel them, if we can sense them, they have substance. Because I cannot sense air. I've tried it. I found the wall, but I could not find air. I only experience it. So I know it's there. But it lacks substance. It's like an existence, a type of existence. And I'm getting too far into that because pretty soon I will cancel myself all out. But Emanuel Swedenborg tells us that where there is essence, there is existence, and one cannot exist without the other. So we are light. We are light beings. Whether you call this form a body or not, it is still light. It still oscillates. It still has a frequency. It vibrates. So in all of this, Orion represents form. This is Orion. My hand is Orion. My soul, or my mind, which is inside, and that's an altogether different lesson there, is Pleiades. And it's only because of Pleiades within that I become a luminous physical being. Remember what I said earlier about the glory of God, that light that is around us. That is the Pleiades effect, if you will, making the body luminous, lords of light, Jesus and Buddha, luminous bodies, luminous forms. And the Pleiadic programs, I don't know if you've guessed this yet, but the Pleiadic programs are the spiritual teachings that are available. What we learned from Jesus was Pleiades programming, spiritual teaching. What we learned from Buddha, spiritual programming, spiritual teaching. Spiritual teachings instruct us to become calm, to accept, to receive, to be open. They instruct us to become empty vessels so that we may become filled with light. And what is it that clutters up our vessels? It's all these distractions. So I'm going to ask Sharon, what have you learned from spiritual teachings?
Well, to go within, um, uh,
Yeah, don't rack your brain.
Well,
that works.
that kind of thing, you said accepting and that, yeah, accepting just things in life, learning how to navigate life in a calmer way, perhaps, not losing your mind over stuff too much. You can lose your mind a little bit over stuff.
So what does it mean to go within? We
Well,
just talked about this.
okay. By going within, you're opening yourself up to those also that are there, somebody reaching down, helping you forward, helping you with a situation. It's not necessarily on a physical level, it's on a spiritual level. So, yeah, that's
What does Buddhism teach us about mind? All things.
right. It's all there. I'm not sure about Buddhism.
When we go within,
Right.
we are going into the realm of potentiality.
Okay.
We're visiting our potential selves.
Okay.
This is what I could be. And when Jesus says, make the inside the outside, take that dream that you see, this is what you could be, and bring it to the outside. Whenever we go within, we're going into that implicate place, potential reality. This is the real reality. The inner reality is the real reality. We shape ourselves according to what we think we are. So it is the potential reality. And Beth, what have you learned from spiritual teachings?
Well, that, yeah, when
when I do go within, there's the potential to tap into this wealth of knowledge out there, and this river of knowledge that just flows and flows and flows. And if I can, dip my hand into it and get a few drops on it for no matter how long until they evaporate, that is like a miracle. That is just a miracle unto myself. And that's what we're made of, and that's what our potential is.
So the Pleiades programming represents the key to physical proto-creation. This is his writing again. I would never use proto-creation. That's just, whoa, mind-boggling. I had to look that up too. The Pleiades represents the key to physical proto-creation. It represents the galactic beginning of the physical atomic household. There's a good one. Atomic household.
He's used that before.
Huh?
He's used that word before.
Oh yeah, atom means
The atom.
first.
Yeah.
Means the first. Proto means the first. So yes, what is it that we're taught to do? We're taught to seek, to discover our primal self, our first self, which is, what are we?
Beings of light.
Beings of light, which is another way of saying
Spirit.
or souls. I use the term souls, but yeah, exactly. We're told to discover our primal soul. And our primal soul is none other than the soul that inhabits this body. So essentially, discover yourself. Not figure out who you are, but discover. Discover. And in doing that, in making that discovery, we clear the path. We cleanse the path of all those distractions. And what is it that we are most distracted by?
Ourselves.
Ourselves. Exactly. Our pettiness, our suffering, our superficial pleasures. Ooh, this feels good. Yeah, let's do it again. Yeah, it's all distractions. Are they bad? No, they're not bad. So don't think that they're bad. They're there to experience. But one of the teachings tells us that when we implement a life of philosophy, the soul is purified. And the idea of philosophy is discover what is beneficial, what is most beneficial. And the role of religion is to help us to get to that, to get to what is most beneficial, to help us understand what it is, what it feels like, and how to be immersed in it. That's what religion should teach, not this, well, I don't want to go off track here. So any thoughts or comments? And I'll begin with Reverend Thomas.
Well, the first thing is I want to thank you for this discussion personally, because it was well over 30 years ago that I first encountered and read the Keys of Enoch. And certainly in that reading, for instance, the Pleiades and Orion, it was more of a literal approach to it and just kind of in awe of it all. So I appreciate you bringing this up again at this point in my life, where I can hear it and see it differently as you explore this yourself, and it's being revealed to you, and so it's kind of come full circle, and it's so anyway, I appreciate the discussion, and I just wanted to say that. because I certainly didn't get that level of enlightenment 30 years ago.
Neither did I.
With the position where I was then, but it served its purpose for me, and it's been hanging out there waiting for this discussion to happen. But it's the thing that I adopted and was fond of saying was that, we are spiritual beings having this human experience. And that was echoing in my mind as you were saying the same thing in other words here. And it all comes back to that, the idea that we are in control. We've given that up, and we feel helpless, but the masters are trying to point out to us that, we can change. You don't like the way things are, then consider what you're doing to contribute to making that be your experience. And all of this points in the various directions for us to take back our power, to use a more modern term about it, and be responsible. And I like to break down responsibility. I heard this many years ago and kept it. Ability to respond is responsibility. If you have no ability to respond, you are not responsible. And so, anyway, it all begins here, as you said, in multiple ways. And thank you for continuing this lesson with us.
Thank you. And it's Sandy. What are your thoughts?
Well, the discussion is very, very interesting. However, I feel like I'm just still trying to absorb a lot of this and having a difficult time putting it into words. But I like to write everything down, and then I can look it over again, and then that helps me. So at this point, I would just continue to say that it's I think the discussion is very, very interesting, and I'm a work in progress, I guess.
Any thoughts you'd like to share?
Since I've been mulling over the spiritual programming, what I see is it makes sense. I mean, the creator had to have a blueprint. The creator came up with a blueprint for us. So it makes sense that this blueprint's inside each of us. And with our brain being an organic computer, and the neurons and arteries and vessels and veins and cells, it's all just part of a machine. You think about an organic machine, it's really amazing. Kind of thinking that part of me is immortal, to use a bad word. It allows me the freedom to use my imagination more, if that makes any sense.
As long as it makes sense to you.
Yeah, I guess that's all that's important.
That's right. That's right. That's all that's important, so long as you get it.
No,
Oh,
that was for me.
oh, that was for you. You waving at somebody?
Yeah, you.
Reverend Thomas.
Two things to add to that. One thought that came to me: programming does not mean preordained, and I think it's important to make that distinction. And the other thing to interject is this idea of free will. And to me, that is the big piece in creation that we were given, is free will, and that's where the whole experiment of the unfolding of creation and our soul's journey, if you will, That's not been written. We're writing it right now. And that's the important thing, is that we have that free will. And yes, the Creator has programmed all of this creation, and within those rules of the road, we are operating and affecting what the next thing is going to be. Whether it's going to be war or peace in the world, whether we're going to be at peace personally or in conflict, all of that is a choice in front of us. And all of this points in that direction, that we, moment by moment, are doing something that brings about the next experience.
Here's a good analogy to keep in mind. We all have an operating system. And what is it that they do with operating systems? They update them. So we're updating ourselves. Any thoughts you'd like to share, Sharon?
I like that, what you just said. That's fun.
Yeah, it was a good idea. I gotta get somebody to write some more material like that for me.
Yeah, I admit too that a lot of that scientific stuff goes right over my head too, but I'm glad that we were able to break it down a little bit and make it a little more understandable. And because it makes more sense now than it did when you first started. And I didn't like the word programming either, because, that implies, control. Somebody else is controlling.
Parameters.
Right. So anyway, I just like all of the explanations that you, Reverend Thomas, just explained to about that. That's good. Yes.
So we lie to ourselves.
Probably more than we want to admit.
Programming? No, not me. I don't like that. I'm programmed. I can't do that. We lie to ourselves because, just because a pot is hot does not mean that we're not going to put our hand on it. Because we're going to do it, because it's a lot easier to grab a hold of it and pick it up and move it over here than it is to go find that pot holder, because we don't know where we left it. There's that programming all askew. Yeah. I still got burned. Programming still works. So I want to leave all of you with this. Within the next universe, we become potential beings. We become that which we seek. Within the next universe, we become the soul beings we communicate. And most importantly, we become the teachers. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to share that.